Shavua Tov, everyone. Shana Tova and Shana Tova. I assume everyone was inscribed for a good and sweet year on Rosh Hashanah and will be locked in for it as well on Yom Kippur, which starts this Wednesday night. Welcome to Tillis Tells Stories for Saturday night. The title of this week's video is Quality of Life. I adapted it from the website of Nishmas Chaim Yeshiva in Jerusalem, headed by Rabbi Benjamin Edelman. Once a chassid from a neighboring town came to Riminov, to his Rebbe, Reb Tzvi Hersh of Riminov, and begged him to somehow intercede so that his father-in-law would die. What are you talking about? Exclaimed Reb Hersh. Well, my father-in-law is already very old, more than 100 years old, the chassid explained, and he has to be watched over all the time. He can't really do much for himself, and he is miserable most of the time, and he doesn't learn, he doesn't pray anymore. He had had enough of life already, and it just keeps hanging on day after day, week after week, year after year. The Riminov really didn't know what to say, but he reasoned that a Jew who lives in such an age must have some kind of a merit. He commanded the chassid to bring in his father-in-law to speak with him. The chassid protested, saying that his father-in-law was too old and too feeble, but the Rebbe wouldn't relent. Bring him in anyway, as I've requested, he ordered. Rabbi Tzvi Hersh of Riminov, who passed away in 1847, was first the attendant of the well-known Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Riminov, and subsequently his successor. He had a reputation, Rabbi Tzvi Hersh had a reputation as a miracle worker. So they picked up the old man and put him in a wagon and brought him to Riminov. They carried him in on a bed and placed him in front of the Rebbe. Reb Hersh began to ask him questions. He soon found out that the old man was a simple but boorish Jew. He had been a wagon driver all of his life. He recited the prayers in the morning, but his real interest was to get to breakfast. He went to shul on Shabbos, but the cholent, the Shabbos stew served at the end, was his main reason. The Rebbe peppered him with more questions to find out if this old Jew could remember any reason that might account for his many years. Maybe there was some special mitzvah that he did, or some experience. Maybe he met a tzaddik, a special holy Jew, on some noteworthy occasion that could have helped him to merit a long life. The old Jew recalled that once some young Torah scholars had asked him to drive them for Shabbos to a town about a half a day's journey away, a town called Lezhinsk. They pleaded with me, he reminisced, but I didn't want to go. I told them that I liked Shabbos at home with my bed and my cholent. But they promised me a good wage and the same food that I would eat at home, and then some. I finally agreed and we set off. We got there not long before Shabbos, and they set me up in a nice hotel. Sure enough, right after the Shabbos night prayers, they showed up with a great meal. Everything just the way I like it. They came back a while later and asked me if I wanted to go with them to some kind of gathering. But I told them that I didn't care for that kind of thing, and they should let me sleep. Being decent guys, they did. In the morning after the Shachris prayers, they even brought me a good meal with a cholent, even better than what I would have gotten at home. So I ate my fill and went down for a Shabbos nap. When I woke up, it was already close to dark and nobody was around. I waited a while, but none of my passengers showed their faces, so I went to look for them. When I arrived at the shul, I heard the loudest singing and saw the wildest dancing you can imagine. I was sure they were all shikar, plastered. I peeked inside and saw empty bottles everywhere, and these guys were singing and dancing like anything. When I went in, I saw they were all in a circle, and one of them there in the middle. He must have been the chief drunk or something, because he was tall and his face was red like fire, and he was dancing with his eyes closed, and they were all singing and dancing around him. At that point, the Riminov Rebbe stopped the old man, explaining that he now understood everything. The tall one in the middle, with a face red like fire, was none other than the Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhinsk, who passed away in 1787. He was a major disciple of the Maggid of Mizrich, who was the successor to the Baal Shem Tov, and he became the leading Hasidic Rebbe of the subsequent generation in Poland and Galicia. He explained that it was well known that whoever even just caught a glimpse of Rabbi Elimelech's face would not be able to leave the world until he had done tshuva, till he had returned to his Jewish roots and the traditional Jewish way of life for the sake of God. By the way, the same is said about whoever immerses in the underground Ari Mikveh in Sfat, where I live. So the Rebbe turned towards the old man and related to him in a gentle, fatherly way how God created the world, how everything in it was put there for our benefit. He described the beauty of the creation, how every aspect of it is perfect, existing together in total harmony. Then he explained the nature of the Jewish soul, how every Jew is like one soul. We are only separated by the physical bodies that we bear. Later, God gave us the Torah and its mitzvot, specific instruction for serving Him and understanding His will. The old man sat and listened, but didn't utter a sound. And so the Rebbe continued. He described how we were given the Shabbos to further bring ourselves closer to Him. Above, we welcome this Shabbat, and the divine presence comes to us, and, in a manner of speaking, sits at our table together with us, sharing our table and our company. At this point, the old man turned his head and stared dreamily out of the window. A moment passed, and he let out a deep sigh. The Riminov, who was a Kohen, quickly left the room. Kohanim, even today, are forbidden contact with the dead. The old Jew heaved one more sigh of remorseful repentance and left this world, and was accepted to the world to come. The Rebbe told us. The Talmud derives from the famous episode about Elazar ben Dardaya, a person who claimed to have done every sin that was able to do. They learned that even the most wicked can change their direction and their fate in a brief moment, because that is what he did. So too we see how the centurion in this story was able to make a complete reversal in but a few minutes and be accepted in the world to come, even though his tshuva came with a lot of extraordinary outside help. So may our tshuva from now till Yom Kippur and during Yom Kippur be accepted, even if our efforts can never be so mighty. Again, Shavua Tov, have a successful and meaningful Yom Kippur holiday and fast. Shana Tova.